fourth wave of the pandemic ravages the continent, we've seen more demonstrations across Europe against COVID measures. There were also protests in Croatia, as well as Denmark and several other EU countries, with people venting anger against tightened COVID restrictions, such as passes for entering restaurants, sports events, and even Christmas markets. Many people are simply fed up with the measures.
All people make their choice. I'm not against the vaccine. I'm here for freedom of choice.
This is not a demonstration against the Green Pass. It's for freedom and against dictatorship, for freedom of choice and freedom of expression, because this has died in Italy.
We maintain that this is a violation of the Constitution. It is not possible to participate in social life or work when green certificate is mandatory.
That's not freedom, that's not where we live. We live in West Europe. And we just want to be free like we were before.
These rules the government is implying is getting out of hand.
People who are vaccinated cannot enter some buildings because they only had one vaccine. This is the main reason we're here, you know, people get discriminated.
Here in Vienna, the protest on Saturday came after it was announced that Austria would be going into a full national lockdown from Monday. Austrian Chancellor Alexander Schallenberg has said that from the 1st of February 2022, vaccines will become mandatory in Austria, a move which the World Health Organization had said should only be taken as a last resort.
COVID-19 has become once again the #1 cause of mortality in our region. We know what needs to be done. Legal and societal debate is very timely. Mandatory jabs are a last resort. Before that, there are other means like the COVID pass.
Remain in lockdown for at least the next 10 days with the option to extend to December 13th, should case figures not have come down sufficiently. However, as the numbers that came out over the weekend show, the more measures that are put in place to try and stop the spread of COVID-19, the more people are prepared to resist those restrictions, potentially creating an environment that will allow the virus to spread even further. Peter Oliver, RT, Vienna.
Shalom. First and foremost, I'd like to give all praise and glory to Yahweh. Ba'ashem Yahushai, Ba'ashem HaKadosh. Yahweh being the true name worldly calls God. Ba'ashem being the name of Yahushai, being the true name of our Lord and Savior, who the world only calls Jesus, and many other names, in the Ruach HaKodesh, being the Holy Spirit. Much respect to Akim and Aguafium, pushing the work of the Lord in true faith and sincerity. Shalom. So, man, after watching this video, man, we can clearly see that, you know, Europe is raging over, you know, the jab mandates, you know, over the, you know, the C-19 mandates, man, you know, because ultimately, you know, people, you know, are starting waking up to the, the sinister, you know, side of Esau, you know, the demonic side of Esau, you know, the draconian side of Esau, you know, so people are raging, man. People, you know, want their free rights, man. You know, people want to live free, but ultimately, the devil's coming with great wrath because he knows if you have a short time, huh? You know, this is the true side of Esau. He is the devil for a reason, man. You know, Esau, he doesn't care about people's feelings. He wants to get what he thinks is best, you know. And ultimately, he wants power, man. He wants to fulfill his new world order. So with these mandates, with these scenarios going on, this is just the beginning, man. You know? Like Esau soon, man, in Babylon, it's going to come to Babylon, America, man. It's happening in Europe, you know, these you know, other, you know, countries, but soon, man, it's going to hit America hard, man. You know? And now let's go to the precepts. This book is 2nd Esdras, chapter 15, starting at the 14th verse, and it reads, "Woe to the world and them that dwell therein, for the sword and their destruction draweth nigh. And one people shall stand up and fight against another, and sword in their hands." You know? So we know that woe means destruction, you know? So ultimately the Lord is saying, you know, destruction to the world and them that dwell therein. So ultimately that means judgment will come, upon the earth. And verse 15, for the sword and their destruction draweth nigh, and one people shall stand up and fight against another with swords in their hands. So ultimately, whether that be, race wars, whether that be, any type of war, anti-vaxxers, anti-maxxers, any shit like that, man. Ultimately judgment is drawing up nigh for, wicked people. And ultimately, wars will happen, man. Whether it be anti-maxxers, anti-pizza eaters, whatever, man. These wars will happen, man, due to the vision that is brought upon the earth, man. In verse 16, for there shall be sedition among men, and invading one another. They shall not regard their kings nor princes. The course of their actions shall stand in their power. So ultimately, there's going to be sedition among men. We see a lot of sadistic things, happening among men, And, we can see that men are invading one another. The love of many is waxing cold, And we're starting to see that, society, civilians, citizens, are starting to not regard, their kings nor princes, man. And that's why we see, riots. We see people, standing up to Esau's bullshit, man. Because ultimately, that's prophecy, for the citizens not to regard their kings nor princes, which just means their rulers, man. Because ultimately, the modern day king right now is the president, just the government, man. The rulers, In the course of their actions shall stand in their power. In verse 17, a man shall desire to go into a city and should not be able to. And we can see that in Europe, various lockdowns are happening, man. People, have to stay quarantined, have to stay in lockdown till December 13th, man. That's a couple weeks, man. So it's like, yeah, this is prophecy, for lockdowns to happen, man. Soon, it's going to come to the States, to the point that Babylon, has various, shutdowns, lockdowns to the point that people can't leave unless they're going to get, necessities, And we see that, that now they're starting, to create, the, access to the, the jab card, basically showing proof that you took the, the Vanessa Vax, man, Because, I know someone, man, and he was like, yo, my brother's asking me for my, jab card, and he's like, yo, why does he just take the jab? And I was like, that makes sense now, man. Because ultimately he took the jab, but his brother doesn't want to. So then he was like questioning, why don't my brother just get the jab? And I was like, maybe he don't want to. But ultimately we can see that, Esau, people is conditioning people, to have the jab cards, man, And ultimately, there's going to be a jab passport, man, a Vanessa Vax passport, to the point that if you don't take the jab, you won't be able to, to travel, with plane, with flight, man, In verse 18, for because of their pride, the city shall be troubled, the house shall be destroyed, and men shall be afraid. So ultimately, due to the pride, it's upon the earth, especially Esau, his cities will be troubled. Houses will be destroyed, and men are going to be afraid, man. These military niggas, man, these soldiers are going to be afraid, man. These are going to turn into pussies, man. In verse 19, a man shall have no pity upon his neighbor, but shall destroy their houses with the sword and spoil their goods because of lack of bread or for the great tribulation. So ultimately, the love of many shall wax cold. People are going to start, having, pity upon their neighbor, due to the, them having a lack of bread representing resources, food, etc., man. So people are really going to, show their bestial side, their animalistic side, man, basically the survival of the fittest, side, man. And people are going to start, stealing, Pookie is going to break into your house and steal food from you, man, or steal whatever resources they need, man. So ultimately, 2nd Esdras chapter 15 is a very prophetic chapter, man, because ultimately these are all things that are going to happen in the future, and things that are slowly, progressing right now, man, in prophecy, man. I'm gonna get one more precept and I'll close it out. This is the book of Proverbs, chapter 29, verse 2, and it reads, "When the righteous are in authority, the people rejoice, but when the wicked bear fruit, the people mourn." So ultimately, we see people, are raging. People are fed up with Esau's bullshit. And the scripture says that when the righteous are in authority, the people rejoice. So, in future times, even past times, when the world, was controlled, the righteous, matter, in the righteous, state, ultimately everyone rejoiced, man, because everything was in order. But when the wicked bear fruit, and then that's very spiritual, man, because Esau is the wicked, man. Esau is the border of wickedness, that's found in the book of Malachi. And we know that the wicked ones, are ruling right now, which are the Edomites, man, the so-called, Caucasian race, So ultimately, when the wicked bear fruit, when the wicked are in authority, the people mourn. So ultimately, this is why we see people, mad. This is why we see people, in the state that they're in, basically rebelling, in that rebellious state, because ultimately they're done putting up with the shit of the devil, man. And we all are, fed up with Esau, man. So with that, Lord, you are to give all praise and glory to you. How about Shemel Shai, about Shemel Kakadash, Shalom.